Hello VC, how's it going? It's Will, and it is that time of the year again. It is the end of 2016, so it is time to do my yearly countdown of my top 10 or my favorite 10 albums of 2016. And this is always my favorite video to make of the year because first of all I get to summarize on some of my favorite music that came out in 2016, and also because I thought it was a really good year for music, for new music in general. Lots of really great new bands coming up with fantastic new albums, and also some older or some classic bands that came back out of nowhere and just released fantastic new music as well. So overall I thought it was a really good year in 2016 for new music. So let's just go ahead and check out my top 10, but before getting started I want to do a quick shout out to 5 records that were also released in 2016 that they were close but they didn't make it into my top 10 of the year. This is my list of honorable mentions, and let's get started with the newest album by The Thermals, the New York City band from the punk rock band from New York City, with their newest album We Disappear that came out on Saddle Creek Records. I made a video review of this album a few months ago, so I'll put a link here in the description so you can go ahead and check it out. Great new album, catchy, fast-paced, lots of themes about the environment and global warming and those kind of themes. Fantastic new album by the indie rock band or the punk rock band The Thermals. This one's We Disappear. Very highly recommended. Another one that also makes it into my honorable mention list is the newest album by Slang. And this one's called A Loud Bash of Teenage Feelings. And I don't own this record on a physical copy yet, but I do own it on MP3, and I'll put a picture here in the video so you can check it out. Great title for a record, and fantastic music by Slang as well. Fast-paced punk rock. I love their style with kind of like the distorted style of vocals, which ends up sounding fantastic. The newest album by Slang also makes it into my honorable mention list, and that one came out on Polyvinyl Records, by the way. Alright, so up next, also on the honorable mention list, is the newest album by Against Me. And this is the punk rock band from Gainesville, Florida. They came back with a new album, and this one's called Shapeshift With Me, and it came out on Total Treble Records. And another great album by Against Me. They always impress me with their albums. Also the one that came out in 2014 was fantastic as well. They have so many releases so far. I think this is like their 7th album already, and they're a pretty young band as well. So I was very impressed with this one, and I know that they will release some even better albums in the future because I just love their style, and you can't go wrong with Against Me. They just put so much energy in their music. Very catchy as well. Make sure that you check it out. This one is Against Me with Shapeshift With Me, also in my honorable mention list. Alright, up next, last two that also make it into my honorable mention list, and I also made a video review of this one in the past, so I'll put a link here in the description so you can check it out. The Descendents with their newest album Hypercaffium Spazzinate. I still think that that's how you pronounce the title of the album. I'm not 100% sure yet. This one came out on Epitaph Records. And this is an example of another classic band that came back out of nowhere and released a new album pretty much since almost 10 years, I think. Very catchy, fast-paced, in a typical style of the Descendents. They don't deviate too much, but the lyrics are completely new and very refreshing to hear them coming back with a new album, and a great new album again. The Descendents with Hypercaffium Spazzinate also make it into my honorable mention list. And last but not least, this is my last album in my honorable mention list. And this one really hurt me not to put it in my top 10. First of all, because it was a great album, but most importantly because it was a local band. This is a band from Atlanta, which I still haven't seen them live, but I was supposed to see them a few weeks ago, but it was completely sold out because first of all, this album was just fantastic, and there's so many people wanting to see them here in Atlanta. And I was very impressed by this new album by the Coathangers. This one is called Nosebleed Weekend, and this one came out on Suicide Squeeze Records. Fantastic album by Atlanta's own, and the Coathangers. Very catchy punk rock. They kind of have their own style of punk rock, I would say, where they play around with lots of different kinds of instruments. There's even one song that they play with a squeaky toy that is completely different, but very entertaining as well. A very highly recommended album by the Coathangers. Make sure that you check it out. This one's called Nosebleed Weekend. It really hurt me not to put it in my top 10 because I really like this one so much. And that's my list of my honorable mentions. And up next, I'll get started with my top 10 of the year. Let's check it out. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started with my top 10 albums of 2016. And coming up at number 10, we get the newest album by the indie rock band from Wales, the Joy Formidable, with their newest album called Hitch. And this one came out here in the US on Caroline Records. And fantastic new album by the Joy Formidable. Indie rock with lots of shoegaze influences, especially in the guitars. You get a lot of the wall of sound with the guitars as well. And the vocals are fantastic in this record. I love the way that the singer sings in this record. It almost sounds like she's whispering in your ear, which adds a lot more emotion, in my opinion, to the songs. The album flows really well, and it has lots of really catchy songs as well. Fantastic new album by the Joy Formidable. This one's called Hitch. Let's go ahead and check out a short clip from one of the songs from Hitch. This one's called The Last Thing on My Mind. Alright, so that was the Joy Formidable coming up at number 10 with their newest album, Hitch. And at number 9, we get a band that I pretty much discovered by accident earlier this year. I was really bored one weekend, and I just decided to go to a concert. I went to the indie rock venue here in Atlanta called The Earl, and not really knowing what to expect. I didn't know much about the band, and I was hooked with this band. And of course they made it to my list because I love this album so much. This is the Seratones coming up at number 9 with their newest album, Get Gone, and this one came out on Fat Possum Records. Like I said before, I completely discovered them by accident. I didn't know what to expect, and they completely blew me away when they performed live. I had to buy the record at the show because they were just so awesome, both live and on the record. They're excellent. Fast-paced, kind of a mix between soul and punk rock. I think I described them before in one of my past videos as the Alabama Shakes on crack, and I still think it's a valid description because they're just so gritty. The vocals are so gritty, and they're also very fast-paced, and I just love their style, and I love this new album, Get Gone. Very highly recommended. Make sure that you check it out, and let's go ahead and check out a short clip from the Seratones. This one's called Chandelier from the newest album, Get Gone, coming up at number 9 on my top 10 list. Let's check it out. Alright, so that was the Seratones at number 9 in my top 10 of 2016. Now coming up at number 8, we get another example of a classic band that came back in 2016 with another great record. I'm talking about, of course, of the legendary, the iconic Pixies. Iconic in the alternative rock music world. They came back with their newest album called Head Carrier, and this one came out in Pixies Music Records, so pretty much self-released. And if you have been watching my videos for a long time, you might remember that the Pixies also got my number 1 album of 2014. which was released a couple of years ago, and which with their album Indie Cindy. And in my opinion, that album was hugely underrated. A lot of people didn't like Indie Cindy at all, and I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was the best album of the year by far, and a return to form for the Pixies. Head Carrier is also very good. In my opinion, it's not as good as Indie Cindy, but it's still a very solid release by the Pixies. I also saw a lot of mixed reviews from Head Carrier. I think in general it got better reviews than Indie Cindy did in 2014. But overall, I think a lot of people were kind of mixed about Head Carrier. I disagree with them, with those reviews. I thought it was a very solid release by the Pixies. I think the mistake that people are making about Head Carrier is that they're comparing the newer Pixies albums with the classic Pixies records that came out in the late 80s, early 90s, albums like Surfer Rosa or Doolittle. And if you do those comparisons, of course, you're not going to think that the new records are any good, but if you listen to them in a vacuum, I completely assure you that you will think that this album is very good. There's lots of really great tunes here, and they include songs that had the same kind of technique that made the Pixies so great back in the day, especially with songs like Tenement Song, and in particular a song called Una. It's a fantastic song with great guitars and great vocals by Frank Black as well. Alright, so coming up at number 7, this is one of my favorite bands of all time, and I think if you have been watching a lot of my videos recently, this might not come as a surprise. This is Green Day with Revolution Radio. Great new album by the California pop-punk trio. This one came out on Reprise Records a few months ago. Fantastic new album, as far as this is more of a stripped-down version of Green Day compared to their previous releases, or the trilogy of records that they came up with back in 2012, I believe. Those records, in my opinion, were way too overproduced. This is a more stripped down version of Green Day. Lots of heavier kind of songs, faster tunes, also combined with lots of pop punk tunes, or very melodic punk rock tunes. Songs like Too Dumb to Die or Bang Band and Revolution Radio. Very catchy tunes, and also very fast paced. In my opinion, the return to form from Green Day compared to their trilogy of records that came out a few years ago. And in my opinion, this is an album that really just flows really well as well. I think this is something that Green Day has almost perfected in the last few years, or in the last few decades, I would say, as far as coming up with an album that just flows really well. It kind of starts slow, then moves up into a faster kind of pace, and then ends up with kind of like melancholic or a slower kind of theme as well at the end. Fantastic new album by the guys from California. Revolution Radio coming up at number 7 in my top 10 of the year. Let's actually go ahead and check out a short clip from Revolution Radio. This is one of my favorite songs, not only of this record, but also of the year. And in my opinion, it might be also one of the best songs that Green Day has done throughout their careers. This one's called Too Dumb to Die. Let's go ahead and check it out. Alright, so that was Green Day coming up at number 7 with Revolution Radio. Coming up at number 6, so we get another classic 90s band. This is a band that came back in 2016. I'm talking about Radiohead with their newest album called A Moonshaped Pool. And this one came out on XL Recordings a few months ago. This is the deluxe edition box set that also came out a few months ago. I'm not going to open it because it's kind of a pain in the ass, but this is a great addition to have if you're a big Radiohead fan. Kind of in the expensive side, but it's a great box set if you wanna collect Radiohead deluxe editions. And fantastic new album by Radiohead. In my opinion, Radiohead right now is at a completely different level compared to other bands out there, in a way that what's impressive for me in this new album is that they're able to compile a collection of new and older songs. Some songs were even previously released in older live recordings, either in official or in bootleg versions, and they kind of remade them, remixed them, and they released in alphabetical order in this record. That's what's most impressive for me, that they can put together a collection of older songs as well as some new music, remade it and repackaged them, put them in alphabetical order, and come up with a fantastic album that just flows incredibly well. That to me is something that only Radiohead can do right now in music right now. It's just so impressive to see these guys coming up with such great albums in 2016. Very, very solid release by Radiohead. This one's called Moonshade Pool. Alright, so now we get started with my top 5 albums of 2016, and at number 5 we got the newest album by the one and only Bob Mould with his newest album Patch the Sky, and this one came out on Merge Records. And recently I've been very impressed with Bob's newest albums, especially the last 3 that came out on Merge Records, what he calls his trilogy of albums. They have just been fantastic. This one in particular is an extremely sad, a very powerful album, Patch the Sky. I think it was released at around maybe a little bit after one of his parents died, so it was obviously a very personal and a very sad album by Bob Mould, but it still has those elements that made Bob so great, especially back in the day when he was leading Husker Du. It still has the great wall of sound that he creates with the guitars, and the vocals are just really great as well. Let's actually go ahead and check out a short clip from Patch the Sky. This is the number 5 album, my number 5 album of the year. This one's called The End of Things. Let's check it out. Alright, so that was number 5, a classic alternative rock artist, Bob Mould with Patch the Sky. And coming up at number 4, we get another classic alternative rock band, Dinosaur Jr. with their newest album, Give a Glimpse of What You're Not. And this one came out on Jack Jaguar Records, and I'm a huge fan of Dinosaur Jr., so I had to include this album in my top 10. Was very impressed with this one. Fantastic album. Very similar to their earlier albums from the 90s. They don't really deviate too much as far as the kind of style that they did so well in the early 90s. Great music here. I think when you get a combination of such talented artists such as Jay Mascis and Lou Barlow and Murph and a great trio, you can't go wrong with them. Whatever they release is just fantastic. Also, this album has a great combination of songs written by Jay Mascis and other songs written by Lou Barlow, which as a whole, it makes the album flow really well, in my opinion. They both kind of have their own style, and I think when you listen to the album as a whole, it just flows really well, and it's just a fantastic album by the guys from Dinosaur Jr. Make sure that you check them out, and if you get a chance to see them live, make sure that you go see them, because they're very cool. They're great to see them live, and I think they're touring next year. I already got tickets for when they're coming to town, I think in February, so that should be a fun show. And I also made a video review of this whole record in the past, earlier this year, so I'll put a link here in the description so you can check it out. Again, number 4, Dinosaur Jr. with Give a Glimpse of What You're Not. Let's go ahead and check out a short clip from one of the songs from this album. This one's called Going Down. Alright, so now we're getting to the top 3 albums, or my top 3 albums of 2016, and coming up at number 3, we get an album that I just recently reviewed in a video that I did a few months ago. I'll put a link here in the description to all my reviews of these records, and this one is called, this one's by The Kills. With their newest album called Ash and Ice, and this one came out on Domino Recordings. Such a great album by The Kills. I love their style, and like I said before in my review, I love the combination between the vocals of Alison Mosshart and the guitars of Jamie Hince, where Alison puts a lot of emotion in the way that she sings, and Jamie Hince is such a fantastic guitar player. And in this record you get a combination of songs written by both members of the band, and they've been through a lot recently. I think Jamie Hince has gone through some accident in his hand where he wasn't able to play guitar for a while. So the overall themes of the records are pretty interesting, and the lyrics are very good as well. And then again, the guitars and the vocals are just the most impressive thing in this record. The whole thing flows really well. In particular, there's some songs that are just so catchy and just so powerful as well. Good stuff here from the guys, or from the guy and the lady from the Kills. Coming up at number 3, this one's called Ashen Eyes. And again, I wish I could play you a song from this record, but again, the copyright issues won't let me play a song from Ashen Eyes. But I'll put a link here in the description to a song from each of the albums that I'm mentioning here in this video. So make sure that you check them out. Again, the Kills coming up at number 3 with Ashen Eyes. Alright, so we're coming up to my top 2 albums of 2016, and at number 2, I'm very happy to mention this record because I haven't seen this record being mentioned very much in other top 10 or countdowns of 2016 videos out there in the VC. This is the newest album by Bleached. I was very, very impressed by this album. This one's called Welcome the Worms. Fantastic pop-punk band from Los Angeles. They came out with another great new album. This one came out on Dead Oceans Records. Here's the track list so you can check it out. This is such a fun album to listen to, especially during the summer in the year. This might be the album that I played the most in the year because it's just so catchy, so melodic, incredibly fun album to listen to throughout the year, in my opinion. I think it might be the album that I played the most in 2016, Bleached with Welcome the Worms. Like I said before, incredibly catchy. I did a review of this video earlier this year. I think it was back in February or March. Again, I'll put a link here in the description so you can check it out. Great pop-punk music. You can't go wrong with them. They just do it really well. Incredibly catchy, incredibly melodic. Some songs in here are just, in my opinion, they're gonna become classic songs from the year. Songs like Keep On Keeping On, which is kind of like a mix between a dance song and a pop-punk tune. Trying to Lose Myself Again, Wednesday Night Melody, Wasted on You, Sour Candy, Chemical Air. Just all the songs in this album are just so fun to listen to. Make sure that you check them out. Again, Bleached with Welcome the Worms, coming up at number 2 in my top 10 of the year. Let's actually go ahead and check out a short clip from one of the songs from Welcome the Worms. This one's actually my favorite song of the album. This one's called Trying to Lose Myself Again. Alright, so that was, before it was Bleached with Welcome the Worms, my number 2 album of 2016. Just an incredibly fun album to listen to. Make sure that you check out this album by the pop-punk trio from California. And that leads us to my number 1 album of 2016. And I was glad to see that this album was mentioned many times in a lot of countdown videos and in countdown articles that came out earlier this or just recently in magazines or in publications out there. It's usually listed high up there in the countdown articles and the countdown videos, usually in the top 10 or in the top 20 of 2016, but I haven't seen them being mentioned as number 1 album of the year yet. So I was glad to give it my number 1 spot of 2016 because, in my opinion, there's just no question about it. It was the best album of 2016, and I'm talking about Savages with their newest album called Adore Life. And this one came out early in the year. I think it was either in January or February of 2016 on Matador Records. Incredibly powerful and chilling album by the post-punk band from the UK, I believe. The sophomore album by the band, they couldn't come back with a better album, in my opinion. the most powerful album by the band. When I was listening to this album throughout the year, I couldn't help but to get goosebumps in some of the songs, because the way that they play the songs and the way that they sing the songs, it's just incredibly chilling. It's just, you can't tell that it's a very personal album. That is a very personal album, and a very deep and introspective album in general, I think, by the ladies from Savages. Post-punk influenced album, very influenced by bands like Joy Division. And like I said before, just a very personal and very deep album, both lyrically and musically. The way that they play the guitars and the bass and the drums, and the way that she sings, is just incredibly chilling. And I just could not recommend this album any more than to give them my #1 album of 2016, to Savages with Adore Life. Again, this is an album that I reviewed early in the year. I think it was in February or March of 2016. Again, I'll put a link here in the description to that review. And yeah, I highly recommend the record. Again, no question about it, in my opinion, the best album of 2016, Savages with Adore Life. I'm gonna go ahead and play you a short clip from Adore Life. This one's called Evil. Alright, VC, so that wraps up my top 10 albums of 2016, with #1 album of the year being Savages with Adore Life. Such a fantastic album. Make sure that you check him out. It's an incredibly powerful album. In my opinion, by far the best album of 2016. And like I said before, that wraps up my list, and I'm glad to say that I've throughout 2016 I was able to see all the bands that I mentioned in my top 10 live, with the exception of the Pixies and Radiohead, which I'm hoping to see both bands in 2017. I've seen both the Pixies several times before, but not in 2016, and I've seen Radiohead once before. I think it was back in 2012 or 11, I think. But I'm hoping to see both bands also in 2017 if they announce a tour here in the US. But again, I was glad to see that. I went through my list and I said, oh wow, I've seen almost all these bands live in 2016. That's pretty cool. And I'm happy to say that all those bands are just incredibly talented and very good to see live. So if you get a chance to see them, don't miss them, because they are just fantastic. And again, I'll put a link here in the description to one of the songs. I'll put a link to one of the songs to all of the records that I mentioned in my countdown and my honorable mentions list. And I'll also put a link in the description of a review that I made before in 2016, if I made a review for that album in 2016. So make sure that you check out all the bands in my countdown. Again, VC, thank you so much for your subscriptions. Thank you so much for your comments, for your follows, for your views. It's been very fun to come up with these videos. It's been fun interacting with everybody. I think it's been a great year in music, and a great year for the VC in general as well. I look forward to 2017. I think my next video is gonna be the bands that I look forward to seeing live in 2017, because there's a lot of bands that already announced tours for next year. So I look forward to seeing a lot of those bands live in 2017. Again, VC, thank you so much for watching, and take care, and happy New Year. Thanks for watching, and take care. Bye bye.